Hello, Broadway fans. It is almost the high holy days of the theater world. The Tony Awards are right around the corner. We are rapidly approaching Tony nominations. And so I'm here with David Buchanan to discuss all of the craziness that is going to happen in these play categories. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. David, I need your help because the play category, best play, is absolutely insane. It is so overstuffed with so many quality things. Every time I've left a play from this fall and winter, I'm like, wow, that could be a Tony nominee for best play. Wow, that was incredible. It is so stuffed. I don't have Pulitzer Prize winners in my top five. That's how crazy this is. I definitely think Leopoldstadt is out front. It is a massive financial success. It's broken multiple house records at its theater with its box office. And it's very rare to have a play like this with no like mega stars in it and no Tony nominations yet to even boost advertising to be a success. So that we can check off Leopoldstadt. After that, who the hell knows? Please help me. What is going on with this category?
This is hard. I do have two Pulitzer winners in here. I have Fat Ham, which is, the Broadway production, at least sight unseen, ran off Broadway, so some folks have seen it. I do have Cost of Living. That feels like a play that, since the nominators see everything, it feels like a play that will get in because, they had to have seen it. Then my last two, oh my gosh, I don't know. I do have Life of Pi. I just think, that kind of spectacle, visual spectacle, the puppetry, like masterful work. I feel like that'll get in. I have Between Riverside and Crazy rounding out the category. But to be honest with you, I don't know. Like there are things I took out last night. I knew we were doing this. So I was like, I was pruning my list. Things I took out that I didn't want to take out, things I want to put in that I can't. What does your five look like? Because obviously we don't have the same five.
Crazily, I have four out of your five in a
Oh,
different
okay.
order. I also
Okay.
have Fat Ham. I think that's a sight unseen. I wasn't able to see that off Broadway, but know many people who absolutely loved it. And I feel like it feels like something of the moment that is going to speak to people. So I have that in there. And then, God, it's just really rough out here, y'all. I have Life of Pi, but I don't think that's safe at all. I do think like it will dominate in craft categories. It has what a lot of people think is a great central lead performance. Um, but there's so many really immensely beautiful scripts in this. I have Ain't No Mo in third, I believe. Just, I know it's closed. I know it had a super short life on Broadway, but it had probably so far one of the biggest stories of the entire season, where you had all these, the Save the Show campaign that they did on social media that Jordan E. Cooper led, and then you have like RuPaul coming in, Jennifer Hudson coming in, like all of these famous people coming in to buy out performances to save the show. They got it extended a week beyond its closing day, and I think it's a really powerful script. I think it's great that it like brought in a demographic that is oftentimes, frankly, not targeted with any Broadway advertising at all. Um, and I don't know. I think that could do something at the end of the day. Even though I know it's a short run, sadly, but I think that could be in there. And then I have Between Riverside and Crazy, but that means I don't have Cost of Living in there, which seems insane because that was such a powerful play. Incredible performances from all four actors in it. Actually, maybe one of my favorite scripts, if not my favorite script I've seen so far out of all the plays. There's also, like, if we talk about sight unseen things, Prima Facie coming in soon with Jodie Comer was a huge hit in London. Don't have that in there, which seems crazy. Uh, Good Night Oscar, don't have that in there, which seems crazy because that's really anticipated. The Thanksgiving play, which people love, I don't have in there. And I'll say even A Christmas Carol. I watched A Christmas Carol and I was like, is this the best thing on Broadway? This like new version of A Christmas Carol of all things, but it was so well done. Beautiful stagecraft. It is truly an embarrassment of riches in this category. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I'm sticking with my 5 for now, even though not having cost of living in there really like gives me pains. So that's the first thing I think I'm gonna put back in if something doesn't feel right to me, but nothing actually feels right to me with
Yeah.
this category.
I even
Nothing.
had the collaboration at one point. That was so well received. I think I have one of the actors in, but that's the kind of season it is where it's so competitive that things that would not miss in other years are going to miss.
Yeah, usually you can kind of count on, if you're a Pulitzer winner, you can just kind of count on getting into Best Play, even if we've had some in, fairly recent years that it's like their only nomination was in Best Play. That may not be the case this year. That's not going to be your bulletproof armor this season. It may not make the difference because of how competitive it is, which is really crazy. So I can't even think about this anymore. Let's move on because no one knows what the hell's going on with Best Play. Uh, if we look at revival, shockingly, we've had a lot of really robust revival seasons lately, but this one just has the 5 contenders. So unless there is a tie, we're only going to end up with 3 nominees. Which are the 3 you're leading with?
Okay, so even I'm overcomplicating this category, and I think we could see actually 4 here because I think the voting for the third slot is going to be, in my estimation, is going to be very tight because I can't make a decision. So I think Piano Lesson and Death of a Salesman are pretty safe. I think Piano Lesson's out front. I feel pretty good about Death of a Salesman. I'm kind of struggling between Doll's House, which is open right now, great performances. They like Jamie Lloyd and his directorial vision and his aesthetic. So I feel like that could get in. But Top Dog, Underdog, the performances, the direction, the production was so well received. I don't
It
know
was
between
incredible.
I don't know between those two. So I have Top Dog right now, which means I don't have Doll's House. And what I'm hoping for is that both of them get in. So nobody is kind of scorched on their predictions because this is really they all deserve to be here. So this
Yeah.
is the struggle.
I don't have Top Dog Underdog in my predictions, which seems insane because I loved everything about that production. Corey Hawkins and Yahya Abdul Mateen were absolutely blew my mind. Everything about it was perfect. So to not have it in my lineup, it's like, I wish there were just like more revivals this season so that there would be more slots in the category. I think because of how tight it is, the only one I feel safe about is the Piano Lesson because it was such a success both financially and critically. It just seemed like a huge event of the season in a way that the others haven't felt. Doll's House is doing really well financially too. That's the only one still open and will still be open at the time of nominations and the awards. So that could be a helpful factor. Then I don't know. But I think the reason why I don't feel like any of them are safe is because, like, well, Top Dog Underdog seems very far away now. Ohio State Murders feels like it was more about Audra's performance than perhaps the production as a whole. A Doll's House, people love Jamie Lloyd with Betrayal, but this is like weird, y'all. This is like not your typical Doll's House.
Not at all.
It
Not at
is
all.
really like Oak Onadawan is sitting there performing with his back to the audience the whole time. Jessica Chastain does not leave her chair. The famous ending is quite different. Like it is not your mom's A Doll's House. So that could be a really cool thing to some people, and other people could go like, what? And then Death of a Salesman also I think they leaned very heavily into the dream aspect of that show and the memory play aspect of that play. So people could again either really latch on to that concept or not. So I really think Piano Lesson is the only one safe. I'm hoping for a tie too. Let's just Tony nominators just do a tie so that 4 of them can get in because it's like really we talked about an embarrassment of riches with Best Play. It kind of is here as well. While we're speaking of Crazy Town, can we also look at another category I need so much help with, Best Actor in a Play? There, I can name at least 5 people in this lineup who would be sure things, like a lock for nomination in any other year, but they're not in my lineup. I'll probably change this 1,000 times. I can't even decide on who the front runner is. There is no clear front runner. Who is there any one single person, David, that you can single out as the front runner?
Not really. And by the way, I'm going out on so many limbs in this category. The branch is going to
Good,
break.
good.
The branch is going to break. I don't know. Let's see if we have any overlap. I bet we have maybe one or two. But as you're saying, you could fill the people who are not going to get in this category, you could fill a whole nother best actor that in another year would be your lineup. So I have
Mhm.
Wendell Pierce out front. I think Willie Loman, is such a towering character. It's a towering performance. And he's so well respected. So I have him out front for now. He's my, provisional front runner. I have both top dog, underdog guys in here.
Mm.
I can't pick one or the other. It's a hard, if one of them gets in, I wouldn't feel confident betting on which one is the one. So I have both of them. That's Corey Hawkins and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I have Stephen McKinley Henderson. Between Riverside and Crazy, I have it in best play. His is the central kind of, that kind of star making turn. He's already a star,
Yeah.
but that's the performance. And then my fifth is the wild card. And maybe this is a holdover from my earliest predictions. I have Jeremy Pope. I had the collaboration in for best play. He's probably the weakest of my 5 that's going to leave. But that means I don't have Sean Hayes. I don't have Jefferson Mays. There's so many people I don't have here. So what are your 5, and how many are like Battleship? How many did we hit?
You have a great lineup. And because the category is so great, I don't have a lot of them in there. I too have Wendell Pierce out front for Death of a Salesman, but it's a risky position to be in because his show is closed. It closed a while ago. Will it feel too far away when there are so many of these contenders who are about to open and will be fresher in voters' minds? But he was just so phenomenal that I have him out front. I also have John David Washington from The Piano Lesson, Marcel Spears for Fat Ham, and another one I'm betting on sight unseen, Sean Hayes, Goodnight Oscar, just because of his reviews for the tryout, and so I'm sort of thinking maybe that will stick. And then Jefferson Mays, who has become the king of playing 50 characters. anytime you have like 50 characters in a production, just hire Jefferson Mays. He'll knock it out of the park. Great performance in A Christmas Carol. But I was shocked, like when I made that lineup, I don't have Stephen McKinley Henderson, because that just I feel like I have to put him in by the end of the season. I just need to figure out who falls away. This just seems, I believe this part was written for him. He just embodies it so well. It is kind of a career defining performance for someone who's had an amazing career already as a stage actor in New York. So I have to think the voters will go for him. And top dog, underdog, again, I don't know why I don't have this in play revival right now, or any of the actors, but I would say if I was going to choose one, I would actually, our odds have Yahya ahead, but I think Corey Hawkins would be ahead. That's the role that got Jeffrey Wright his Tony nomination for this play, for the original production. And I think that character, while they're both outstanding, Corey just has a few more like explosive moments. And that finale, the final scene with him just is that last like searing image you have in your head when you leave the show. So I would say I'm close to putting Stephen McKinley Henderson in. I'm close to putting Corey Hawkins in. And also sight unseen, we have Hiran Abe Sakira. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name, but he's the lead of Life of Pi, who the Olivier Awards fell in love with, and that is a really great opportunity for an actor. That seems like the breakout role kind of moment that they want to shine a spotlight on a new star. So we shouldn't discount him. Basically, we shouldn't discount anyone. We literally haven't even talked about Nathan Lane and Danny freaking Burstein in this category. Or Paul Bettany, who's here. It's really, expect this one to be, this is the one you should play around with the most in your predictions, because this is gonna shift quite a bit, I think, by the time we're at Tony nominations. Lead actress in a play has a bit less contenders, unfortunately. We just heard that the Broadway production of Room is sadly no more. At the last second, they were still in rehearsals, getting excited to get into their theater, and the show is no more. Lead producers pulled out, so that's a contender gone. Adrienne Warren, I think, would have definitely gotten into what would be a 4-slot category. But now there's an open slot. Who do you have making the cut?
So I have Jodie Comer out front, just because, again, sight unseen for me. I didn't see it in London. So, we'll see what happens when it comes. But the reviews were so astounding that I think she's firmly in the top 2. Jessica Chastain, remarkable reviews for Doll's House, great performance. Despite how one might feel about the production, as you were saying, Sam, she's incredible. Audra McDonald, again, incredible Ohio State Murders. Unfortunately, that ran shorter than expected, but the nominators will have seen it. I think she's in. My 4th slot is going to Laura Linney. They love Laura Linney. Don't love her enough to give her a Tony yet. I don't think she's won one yet.
She keeps trying.
I know.
She keeps getting close.
And all these fantastic roles. So we haven't seen that play yet because it's Jessica Hecht, who they also really like. They like Jessica Hecht. Laura Linney and Jessica, those are the 2 that I'm looking at most closely for that 4th. I'm deferring to Laura because of, her track record and just how much they love her. But, we'll see when that opens, how that shakes out.
Yeah, I feel like I'm nervous about the fact that it seems like we'll have 2 contenders from summer 1976 with Laura and Jessica. And do they split the vote? Does that mean Zoe Wanamaker can come up? She doesn't have, I would say, as big of a role. That's probably why she's towards the bottom of our odds for lead actress. I think she doesn't have quite as much to do as Nathan Lane and Danny Burstein, but when she does get something to do, it's sensational. Like her final, she gets that monologue towards the second half of the play, which is just gets to knock everyone dead. So if there is sort of a split in, support between the summer 1976 women, she could be a valid option here. But I do have the 4 you have. I have Audra down at the bottom just because I love her and she was amazing in Ohio State Murders, but I feel like at this point, when she is the most winningest actress ever at the Tonys, there's going to have to be a real undeniable narrative for her to get a 7th Tony Award, because that's crazy. So I don't see that narrative happening here to get her another win. But I do think she'll be nominated. I think the win, unless summer 1976 takes off, will probably be between Jessica Chastain and Jodie Comer. That would be the big battle. But Jessica Chastain's coming in hot off of an Oscar win, so she could just march her way through on her way to potential Triple Crown glory here. Let's move on. We have featured actor in a play. We have Samuel L. Jackson out front. I would say he's probably the most famous name in the bunch. Do you think that's why he's out front, or do you have him as the big threat to win here?
I have him out front. We saw last year with Felicia Rashad that if it's closed, but they love you and the performance was great, you can still win. So, I don't want to discount him just because the show will have been closed for a while by then. I think it closed in January. I have Samuel L. Jackson. I think the folks from Leopoldstadt could be threats here because the show is still running. I have 2 actors from Leopoldstadt getting in. I have Brandon Uranowitz and David Krumholtz. I think David is David the actor who's left, or Brandon? One of them has just left.
Oh, I think Brandon left. I could be totally wrong on that. I forget.
Yeah, the nominators will have seen the full original cast, so I think they're both in. That would, impact perhaps, if voters hadn't seen it and are going to see it during voting, that might have an impact. I have Andre DeShield in, and then in my last slot, I'm debating who to put. I have Arian from Doll's House right now. I just think, Torvald is such a big role, and, working so closely with Jessica, especially the close of that show, the final scenes of that show with the two of
Mhm.
them, you know, and he's done, he's a Tony nominee in the past. He's, done a lot of theater work. I feel like he could make this top five, but again, crowded category. So what does your five look like?
Oh yeah, it's so crowded. I don't have Ariane Moayed in my personal lineup at the moment. I have David Krumholtz winning. I think Leopoldstadt is going to be a major force to be reckoned with. I don't think it should be understated how incredible it's just so hard to have a success like this at this level for a straight play. It doesn't happen that often on Broadway. And it's we talked about in our video for musicals how unfortunately there's a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric right now, which is making Parade feel relevant. It's also making Leopoldstadt feel unfortunately relevant. And David Krumholtz gives such a beautiful performance in this, and I think really they could have pushed him to lead, and I think he still would have. He feels it's a massive ensemble, so I know why everyone isn't featured, totally justified. But out of everyone, he feels like has the most central story to me. He has kind of the clearest defined arc over the period of the play, and the change you see him go through. And it's really beautiful to watch what he does. So I have both him and Brandon getting in. I think Brandon is ahead of him in our odds right now, probably because he's a past nominee and he just has like a seemingly a nonstop stream of Broadway credits. So he's very loved in the industry. I just feel like David's performance is a bit more central in the play. And he, I think, is the biggest threat to Samuel L. Jackson at this current moment. But I do have Samuel L. Jackson in there. I also have his co-star for Piano Lesson, Ray Fisher, who got great reviews. And then I'm filling out the category with Jordan E. Cooper for Ain't No Mo. I just think all of his, like, he was really the person spearheading the Save the Show campaign on social media. He became such a present voice on Broadway for that period of time. That may not mean, like, they could instead reward him with best play, right? Because he's also the playwright. So maybe he doesn't get an acting nomination. It's kind of could go either way, but I think he gives a great scene chewing performance in this. The one I'm really want to push it in there is Greg Mosgala from Cost of Living. I just love Cost of Living so much, and I'm worried that as time goes by, the voters will forget like the nuances of those actors' work, which made their performances so beautiful. I think that's why I have him like just outside of the category, but he's someone I would really love to see get recognized. Is there anyone else from lower down in our odds that you think we shouldn't count out?
I'd have to look. I could look right now, but I think you covered a lot of the people that I'm not picking. I think you've singled out the ones that are trying to get into my five. It's just it's so crowded.
Yeah, and I will say if Leopoldstadt is on a tear and just gets checked off, Artie Fruchen also is amazing, playing kind of dualities in this show. I think he could be a surprise nominee that people don't see coming. We also haven't seen a lot like Fat Ham. We don't know which person from that ensemble they might, coordinate all their votes around. Same with, the Thanksgiving play. There's Chris Sullivan and Scott Foley there. Between Riverside and Crazy has a large ensemble. So we don't. It's hard to pick out which one from those really beloved plays would get in, but it's very hard to suss out. So let's move on. Let's move on to featured actress, because I'm going out on a limb here. I have Krista Lucas Perry for Ain't No Mo winning this whole damn thing, because again, I'm going out on several limbs for this play. I know it's closed. I know it had a short life, but damn if her scene is not one of my favorite things I have ever seen on Broadway. she just like portrays, I don't even really know how to describe it, uh in a setup where this Black family has sort of tried to pass as, you know, very stiff upper lip white people to be, you know, as what would be expected in a very toxic all white neighborhood, rich affluent white neighborhood. They're trying to pass and fit in with these people. Crystal Lucas Perry is like literally the embodiment of Black history that they keep locked in the basement. She comes out with this stream of consciousness monologue that I want a bootleg of, even though bootlegs are bad, I know, but I just want to like inject it into my veins. And I think between her performance in 1776 and this, like she has to get something. And so I'm going out on a limb. Am I crazy? Will my limb break?
You're not crazy. I don't know. You know, it's such an unknown. We'll see how the spring shows shake out. It's such an unknown how many of these fall shows are going to get in. That's my question. I don't have that show anywhere, which does not feel right to me. I think
It's
it
not
will
right.
be.
Crystal's gonna win.
It's going to be represented somewhere. I just don't know where. And these categories are so crowded. So here's some of the people in my lineup. You probably have Sharon D. Clark.
Certainly.
Maybe we can avenge her loss last year.
I know she has to come back and get a redemption arc.
Please. Danielle Brooks for the piano lesson. I think she's in here. I have Katie Sullivan for Cost of Living. I think that's a performance that even though the show is closed, I think that stands out. I really do. I have Faye Castello from Leopoldstadt. Although there's many from that ensemble that could get in. So that's, you know, you're trying to pick one, you know, one or two out of a large ensemble. I'm going, this is less of a limb, but it's a sight unseen. I'm going Katie Finneran for the Thanksgiving play.
That
you know,
has me nervous.
Yeah, so we'll see when it opens and we know more, you know, who of that, you know, quartet stands out, but she, you know, right now just leaps out to me.
Yeah, and they love Katie Finneran.
They do.
And I mean,
We all
rightfully
do.
so,
We all
because
do.
she's incredible. She's just like never not been amazing in a show. But that I just haven't seen Thanksgiving play yet. It's not open. So her and Darcy Carden are like major threats for this category. Those are, I have the same lineup for you. I just, instead of Katie Finneran, I have Crystal, who's out to win the category for one of the most incredible moments I've ever seen. But I also I have Katie Sullivan for Cost of Living. It's like my one spot for Cost of Living right now. But yeah, I think Faye Castello, even though we talked about Leopoldstadt being so vast, especially with the men in featured actor, I feel like it's a little easier to center on her for featured actress. She's the out of all the there's a lot of women in this play, but out of all of them, she has the most robust role. And I think the without spoiling it for people, like the moment that really rips your heart out and that people will remember. So I think in this case, whereas featured actor is a little hard to figure out where the votes will align, I think they will come together for Faye. Also, we have Kara Young from Cost of Living, who got in last time. There's Liza Colon-Zayas from Between Riverside and Crazy, who I believe, did she get a Lortel nomination for the off-Broadway version of that play? I think she was recognized for that performance in its initial run. So it's a huge category. We haven't seen like Emily Bergel in Goodnight Oscar or any of the women from Peter Pan Goes Wrong. So it's pretty full. Is there someone from further down the list that you think could make it? You're already going for Katie.
She's Katie further down the list?
Well, not she's ninth, but like
okay.
she's
right.
gonna be higher because she's Katie Finneran.
So,
it's just no one's seen the play yet.
Oh yeah, Katie. Yeah, I thought you meant Katie Sullivan. No, Katie.
No, Katie Finneran.
Yeah. I don't know. I think on Between Riverside and Crazy, Liza, I think she left early. Like, I think I don't. So I'm concerned. I had her in up until last night. I don't think she stayed with it through the limited run. So I'm concerned that maybe nominators didn't even get to see her if they saw the production.
Oh, I think they saw her. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely saw it when it opened, and there were nominators there. So like a
Okay.
lot of the like
Okay.
a lot of the nominators, not as a rule, but most of them see it around press week or
Yeah.
opening week.
Yeah.
Unless basically unless something with their schedule like really can't make that work, that's basically when most of them are seeing the show. And she was in it during that time. It
Yeah.
could be harder in terms of a win, which this is something we should talk about as well, because like if someone, a voter, saw it at the end of the run,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have seen her. And there is a new rule this year. They changed the voting a little bit. You still have to log your attendance in this portal to make sure you're voting for the proper categories, but they are allowing you, if you have seen or if you've missed just one person out of the eventual nominees, you can still vote in that category. So that would affect someone like Liza. I mean, it was
Yeah.
always kind of on a, trust-based system that people were going to vote accordingly anyway when they hadn't seen someone but had seen the show. But now they're saying you can just vote. If it's only one person you've missed, like one actor, you can vote, which I think was born out of last season when so many things were, it became so hard to see everything because people were constantly out with COVID. You'd have to quarantine for 10 days, and it became insane to try and see everyone who was nominated. So it's trying to curb that a little bit. But that could affect her if she's nominated for an ultimate win.
I mean, I could see her getting in because I think that production is going to be strong. So I could definitely see her getting in, especially as you're saying, she didn't leave that early. I mean, I don't want to overstate like, oh, but if the nominators or the majority of them saw it while she was there, I absolutely think she could get in.
Yeah. Well, we've covered the crazy acting races. Before we hang up here, best director. I'm just having fun with this. I'm going out on a limb for best director, and I have A Christmas Carol, Michael Arden out front to win, because this was like stagecraft on par with like freaking Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It was like a mind-blowing production. And so much of that is due to his work there. It's like the biggest, most obvious direction, which we always talk about in these races, is sometimes it's like the biggest, most obvious one that wins. So I know it's closed. I know Christmas Carol is like, everyone's seen a version of A Christmas Carol before. I just think this was so impressive that I have to put him as number one. Who do you have?
Well, this is a very different Christmas Carol than just the one we had, in the 2020 Tony
Absolutely.
season. So
Yeah.
it's not as if, this is a retread. So I don't think it's that crazy. I don't have Michael Arden just
Well,
because
that's crazy.
it's again, this is a very crowded, all these races are so crowded. There are people like, I don't have Fat Ham in here, which, may change, when it opens. So here's my five. I have Leopoldstad, Life of Pi. I don't even know if these are in the order in which I'm ranking, in which I think likelihood to win, but these are the ones I have. I have Piano Lesson. I have Kenny Leon for Top Dog Underdog. And in my fifth, this is definitely in my fifth. I have Jamie Lloyd in for A Doll's House. They liked his Betrayal. They liked his direction of Betrayal. So they could like him enough to get in Doll's House. The race is more crowded this time than the season of Betrayal. And as you're saying, the production is a bit more challenging than the production of Betrayal. So I'm not terribly confident about Jamie Lloyd, but since they liked Betrayal enough last time to give it, I think, like 4 nominations, I'm penciling him in my fifth slot. I don't know if you have him in your 5.
I don't. I've come close. He's hovering for me. Because I do think he has probably one of the most easily identifiable directorial concepts in a play this season, because it is, again, not your mom's dollhouse. It definitely stands out, like, because of what he's done with it. So that could very likely push him over the edge. I don't have him in. I have A Christmas Carol, Life of Pi, which again, just because it's such a major, huge production, Leopoldstadt, The Piano Lesson, and Fat Ham. Um, Fat Ham and I feel like might be the one that's most on the cusp, just because what I've gathered of it so far, just sight unseen, it doesn't appear like it is that obvious of a massive concept or massive production. My opinion on that could change once I see it, though. What I'm really worried about is Prima Facie, which a lot of people from London were super impressed with, and are really anticipating it here. That's the one that and A Doll's House are the kind of two that are hovering for me. But I also love Death of a Salesman. I kind of loved that approach to it, really leaning into that the dreamscape and memory play aspect of it. In like I think a lot of contemporary productions really choose to make it this like really super gritty, realistic thing, and almost try to ignore those aspects of the play in a way. So it was refreshing to go back to that. So I think that will definitely stand out in the pack. Do you think any closed show like that is making it in? Am I crazy?
No, not at all. I think Miranda Cromwell could get in for Death of a Salesman. Again, it's just it's so crowded, and this is like these categories where we get revivals and plays, competing
Extra
for
hard.
yeah, it's even harder. Like even the split, like are we going to see two new works and three revivals, two new works? Really hard to determine. I just want to add on your comment on Fat Ham. We haven't seen it. I don't know what the physical production really looks like. I didn't see it off Broadway, but it could be one of those like a Sweat, a contender like Sweat, Lynn Ottage's Sweat, which also won the Pulitzer, which got in for Best Play, got a couple of actors in, but did not get Kate Wariski in for director. So
Right.
I want to put it in because I think it's going to be a standout play of the spring. I do, but I just don't know. We'll see when we both of us see it if the direction is an aspect that stands out enough amongst this really crowded field.
Well, it's one of those things where like the Sweat example, I think is a example of people really latching on to the script
Yeah.
more than the direction. And if we had a separate category for best script, Tony Awards, I'll bang that drum every damn year, then I think Sweat could have been a contender to win best script, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the case. I think that's why I have Michael Arden out front for Christmas Carol, because as much as I absolutely loved that show, and at this point I probably would have it in my top 5 of things I've seen this season so far, I don't think it's going to get into best play, because I think best play right now is both a producer award and a playwright award, and a lot of people are voting for this based on the playwright, because it's which artist are we lifting up, right? And we saw just last season when they clearly loved Dana H. It won for Deirdre O'Connell, won for sound design, and got a surprise director nomination. So they clearly loved that show, but it didn't get into best play. And I posit that it didn't get in because it was all pre-existing material, right? They're going for the writing very heavily with this category. And Lucas Nath, while he still had to put in work for that, it was about constructing a dramatic arc and story out of that pre-existing material. The same thing can be said of Christmas Carol. All of those words are Charles Dickens for this iteration of it. They just created their own version out of that material. So that's why I think an amazing physical production like that will be nominated for director, not play. But we need a script category.
We do, especially like think about just one final note. This is a different category, but in revival, the fact that Adrienne Kennedy would be a nominee for revival if Ohio State Murders got in, because it never, it's a classic. It's a quote unquote classic, but it's never been nominated for Tonys or eligible for Tonys. So she would be a nominee for the Tony. Like that's a very tempting reason for me to put it in revival, because I do think the nominators are aware of these things, and to give her I think that would be, is that her first? Would that be her first Tony nomination?
Oh yeah. That's so true, because that classics rule where if you're a revival but not really a revival, the playwright gets to be on the bill.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll have to see how they rule, but that could be the same thing for Amy Herzog.
Yes.
Because while A Doll's House is obviously a play that's existed for many, many years, this is a new adaptation of it, and she has purposefully kind of modernized a lot of the language. So I think they would probably rule that she would be on the bill. That could be a major reason why A Doll's House might, maybe she could take down Piano Lesson, because they're able to vote for the playwright there.
Yeah.
There's lots to think over. There's lots to ponder, everyone. So much is going to happen with these play categories. They're so stacked. So please, please head over to Gold Derby, make your predictions. What do you think is going to happen as this spring season unfolds? See if you can do better than David I. And until then, keep in touch with us. We'll keep dragging you through this season and see what gets nominated at the 2023 Tony Awards.